Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom was the prototype Chance Hyper GTX roller coaster. This ride has been revered for its ejector airtime and smoothness, yet despite being built a decade ago, it's still the only one of its kind operating. So that begs the question, why aren't there more? In this review I'll try to answer that question while explaining why this ride experience is so good. Between 1996 and 2004, Morgan Manufacturing built a series of mega coasters. These coasters featured giant out and back layouts with lots of sustained floater airtime. Two of Morgan's final coasters offered more extreme airtime in Kennywood's Phantom's Revenge and Six Flags Mexico's Superman. While Morgan was starting to make some really exciting layouts, the company was sold to Chance Rides in the early 2000s. Chance Rides was known primarily for flat rides, but they also dipped their toes into the coaster market with their infamous toboggan model and some kiddie coasters. While they can now build hypercoasters like Morgan, they unveiled an equally as interesting and more cost-effective model in the mid-2010s. The HyperGTX was Chance's answer to the Intamin Megalight. The HyperGTX would be a relatively small coaster featuring a dynamic layout full of airtime. They just needed a buyer to prove the concept. And they found one. After Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom closed in 2010, Ed Hart signed a deal to resurrect the park as Kentucky Kingdom. Hart previously ran Kentucky Kingdom in the early 1990s before Six Flags took over, and he knew the importance of roller coasters. He knew he needed a new headlining attraction, especially after Six Flags relocated chain to Six Flags Great Adventure. Original plans called for a new $15 million B&M, but Ed Hart instead took a chance on Chance. For half the price, Hart signed a deal for the first Hyper GTX roller coaster. This ride would open in 2014 as part of Kentucky Kingdom's grand reopening. The coaster would be named Lightning Run, which was a nod to the park's major wood coaster in Thunder Run. It can be easy to mix those two up. It also doesn't help that Dollywood is nearby with a ride named Lightning Rod. But back to Lightning Run. This coaster is the signature ride in the front half of Kentucky Kingdom. The royal blue track looks amazing. It really pops on a sunny day. Then the coaster has an electric yellow and purple train to contrast nicely with that track. Because of this coaster's location, it is the first ride most people run to when they arrive at Kentucky Kingdom. If you aren't one of the first ones in line, it's wise to return to Lightning Run later in the day when the line typically decreases. Lightning Run tends to have one of the longest lines at Kentucky Kingdom. Part of that is the ride's popularity, and part of that is the ride's capacity. Lightning Run features two trains, each seating up to 20 riders across 10 rows. The ride can run two trains, but has tended to operate with just one in most of my visits. The other issue is how long it takes to dispatch Lightning Run. These restraints are not very accommodating, so a few people each train will struggle to fit and sometimes get denied. This is what slows down the dispatches. The trains feel like a cross of Morgan and RMC trains. You have a comically large nose at the front of the car, and seats that feel elevated. Then the restraints feel straight out of RMC's playbook, with the lap bar contouring and even the shin guards. I have no trouble with these restraints, but I know the shin guards can be uncomfortable for larger guests, particularly during this ride's aggressive finale. The coaster is otherwise comfortable. The ride is mostly smooth outside some bumps in the lower S-bends. Now one weird thing with this coaster is that it sort of makes this squeaky noise as it rolls through the layout. I haven't heard that sound at any other coaster. Speaking of sounds, you dispatch to a delightfully 90s tune and head up a 100-foot or 30-meter tall lift hill. The lift is shockingly slow, but eventually you reach the top and are flung over the 80-degree first drop. This drop is over in a flash, but it's intense and powerful. It reminds me of the drops in the small RMC hybrids. Those in the back get very strong ejector airtime. This element is the main reason I prefer to ride Lightning Run in the back, but the ride really is great in any row. At the bottom of the drop, you turn left into a camelback. This hill is profiled perfectly to offer good sustained ejector airtime for all. You then careen through an overbank. This element doesn't do anything other than changing your direction. The biggest weakness with Lightning Run in my opinion is that it's devoid of any positive Gs. This coaster is straight ejector airtime. You then twist sideways into a turnaround, which has some interesting profiling. You first navigate this bunny hill, delivering an ejector airtime pop for all, but it is stronger up front. You then turn 180 degrees, but the turn has the sideways hump in it that feels like a wave turn. It's not as strong as those in RMCs, but it does give a faint pop of airtime for all. You then abruptly dip down to the ground. This drop is excellent. You get a terrifying head chopper at the start of the turnaround, then you get excellent ejector airtime if you're in the back. Even those up front get a nice pop entering this drop. You then twist upwards into what I call the fake out hill. Rather than making one continuous turn, you level off at the top for a straight bunny hill before continuing the turn. This hill gives another great pop of ejector airtime, but again it has a little more oomph up front. It always catches my body off guard though, because I always anticipate the turn being one fluid motion rather than being broken up by that bunny hill. This element then leads into this outward banked hill that dives back down to the ground. This gives a nice pop of airtime for all. Lightning Run then zips through some low to the ground S-bends. This is that one bumpy part I mentioned earlier in an otherwise smooth ride, but it's one of the few spots on the coaster where you can feel the speed. You then hit Lightning Run's incredible finale. It is one of the best conclusions of any coaster. You have 3 consecutive bunny hills plus a sharp rise into the final breaks. The 3 bunny hills have super sharp crests and feel like the triangular hills on Magnum XL 200 on steroids. These hills offer extreme pops of airtime. It is hysterical watching the reaction of the other riders while in line. The ejector airtime is unreal. These elements are insane. You then sharply rise into the final brake run, getting another extreme pop of airtime before hitting those final brakes. This ends the 2,500 foot or 760 meter long coaster. While that track length doesn't seem like much, Lightning Run certainly gives a full and satisfying ride experience. The one other flaw with Lightning Run is the sense of speed. This coaster has a top speed of 55 miles per hour or 89 kilometers per hour, but this ride just doesn't feel fast. For comparison, Storm Chaser on the other side of the park is a little slower, but the ride has a better sense of speed. That being said, it is a minor gripe because the airtime hills are what shines in this coaster, and there are plenty of those. So what would I rate Lightning Run? I would give the prototype Chance Hyper GTX a 9 out of 10. This is a forceful little ride. Most hills catapult me out of my seat, but what stands out most are those crazy bunny hills at the end. Those hills took my breath away. This coaster has no glaring flaws, just some minor things I noted throughout the review. I ultimately think this is the second best coaster Kentucky Kingdom after Storm Chaser, but it forms one of the best 1-2 punches in the world, especially if you're a fan of ejector airtime. So why aren't there more Hyper GTX coasters? I think there are 2 reasons. The biggest is marketability relative to cost. Parks want a ride they can market. While Lightning Run is undeniably a fun ride, it doesn't break any records. Those are the holy grail for a park's marketing department. For comparison, Intamin has only built 1 Megalight since 2009, so it's not an issue exclusive to Chance. It's the type of ride. That's why I think it's smart that Chance is diversifying the Hyper GTX. The new one slated to open at Mattel Adventure Park in 2023 will feature a launch and inversions. The second possible reason could be the restraints. As I mentioned earlier, this is one of the more unaccommodating coasters out there, and parks want attractions a majority of their guests can experience. Hopefully more parks are willing to add these Hyper GTX coasters, and if they're anything like Lightning Run, they're gonna be a winner. So those are my thoughts on Lightning Run. What are your thoughts on this ride, or the Hyper GTX model in general? Why do you think more of these haven't been built? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.